Anastasia has always been seen as one of the classic villains in the story of Cinderella. She and her sister, Drizella, are the cruel stepsisters who torment the protagonist, encouraged by their mother, Lady Tremaine. However, upon closer inspection, Anastasia's journey places her as the most fascinating character in this narrative. While Cinderella personifies kindness and patience, Anastasia offers a depth that is rarely explored in fairy tales: the possibility of redemption and growth, even for those who started as villains. To understand why Anastasia is the best character in the story, we must begin with the environment in which she was raised. From her introduction in Disney's classic Cinderella, Anastasia, like her sister Drizella, is shown as a superficial character driven by envy and cruelty. Both blindly follow the orders of Lady Tremaine, their manipulative and calculating mother. Lady Tremaine embodies the relentless pursuit of social status and power, and does so ruthlessly, training her daughters to see the world the same way. At first, Anastasia seems just an extension of her stepmother's will. She treats Cinderella as inferior, despises her simplicity and kindness, and blindly competes for the prince's attention without even knowing him. However, unlike Drizella, who remains loyal to villainy, Anastasia shows signs early on that her cruelty is not innate. Unlike her mother's calculated coldness, Anastasia often acts out of insecurity, clearly trying to please Lady Tremaine, even though she seems uncomfortable at times. This dysfunctional family dynamic is one of the main factors shaping her behavior. Lady Tremaine never hides that her goal is to secure a good marriage for her daughters, not for love or happiness, but for status. The stepsisters grow up in an environment where competition and appearance are valued more than empathy and character. This stifling environment heavily influences Anastasia's actions. However, even under Lady Tremaine's firm hand, there is something human and vulnerable in Anastasia that has yet to surface. Throughout the first film, although Anastasia follows her mother's orders, it becomes evident that she does not possess the same intrinsic malice as Lady Tremaine. While the stepmother acts with a clear and cold objective, Anastasia is often portrayed as impatient, spoiled, and desperate for approval, suggesting that her behavior is more a product of her upbringing than true evil. This subtle detail already paves the way for the great transformation we will see later in the story. This background is important because it shows that Anastasia is not simply evil. She is a young woman shaped by a toxic environment and an authoritarian mother figure. From the beginning, we can see that her actions reflect more a need for acceptance and belonging, especially within her own family, than true villainy. This starting point is what makes her eventual redemption even more powerful, as we are not dealing with a character who was born to be cruel, but rather someone who was pushed into this role and, over time, finds the strength to break free. Anastasia's true transformation begins to unfold in Cinderella the Second's Dreams Come True, a film that surprised many by offering unexpected depth to this character. In this second chapter, we see Anastasia in a completely different light. Contrary to what was expected of one of the secondary villains, the film shows that even characters like Anastasia can have a genuine desire for change and growth, and this change starts with an unexpected spark: love. The central point of her transformation is her encounter with a humble baker. While her mother and sister continue to be obsessed with wealth and status, Anastasia does something no one expected. She falls in love with a simple man. This is a crucial moment for the character because it goes directly against everything her mother taught her. Throughout her life, Anastasia was indoctrinated to believe that love was secondary. The priority was always to marry well, find a prestigious man who could guarantee her financial security, and, more importantly, satisfy her mother's expectations. But when she meets the baker, something changes within her. This change is not just an act of rebellion against Lady Tremaine. It is the beginning of a journey of self-discovery. For the first time, Anastasia begins to make decisions based on her own feelings and not her mother's dictates. This is the first sign that she is ready to break the toxic cycle of manipulation and oppression that has always surrounded her, and the love she feels for the baker is authentic. There is no interest in status or power. What Anastasia finds in this man is kindness, something that, ironically, she has never fully experienced in her own home. However, this choice is not easy. When Lady Tremaine discovers the romance, she tries in every way to discourage Anastasia. The idea of her daughter being involved with someone of lower class is unacceptable, and the pressure Anastasia faces is enormous. But, unlike before, she begins to resist. The fact that she chooses to fight for this love, even knowing it could jeopardize her relationship with her mother, shows that her transformation is not superficial. Anastasia is changing from the inside out. Another significant point is Cinderella's role in this process. Cinderella, who spent much of her life being mistreated by Anastasia, supports her stepsister at this crucial moment. This not only reinforces Cinderella's benevolent character, character, but also highlights the power of forgiveness. By supporting Anastasia in her quest for true love, Cinderella shows that she believes in people's ability to change. And it is precisely this belief that gives Anastasia the strength she needs to continue her journey of redemption. This arc in Cinderella 2 is essential for Anastasia because it is the first time she chooses something that is exclusively hers. She is no longer trying to please her mother or follow the path imposed on her. On the contrary, she is seeking something genuine and personal. And it is this search that transforms her from a villainous character into a three-dimensional figure capable of complex and emotional decisions. Anastasia's evolution reaches its peak in Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, where she is faced with a definitive moral choice. In this film, Lady Tremaine, ever manipulative, uses magic to rewrite history, making the glass slipper fit Anastasia's foot. This creates a situation where the prince, under a spell, believes Anastasia is the young woman he has been searching for since the ball, the true owner of the slipper. This moment marks a crossroads for Anastasia. On one hand, she has the chance to finally achieve everything she has always wanted: a luxurious life beside a prince, elevated status, and the prestige her mother always dreamed of for her. For someone who spent her entire life trying to satisfy Lady Tremaine's expectations, this is the perfect opportunity. However, throughout the film, we begin to see a different Anastasia, no longer driven solely by these superficial ambitions. During her time with the prince, Anastasia begins to realize that something is wrong. Although he treats her with respect and courtesy, there is no true love in his gestures. The connection the prince clearly had with Cinderella is not present with Anastasia, and this makes her question her own decisions. Unlike what might be expected from a classic villain, who would seize any opportunity to rise in life, Anastasia is no longer satisfied with a life based on lies. This reveals an emotional depth that sets her apart from other characters, showing that she is not simply motivated by the desire for power or wealth, but by the search for something more authentic. The turning point occurs when Anastasia decides to tell the truth to the prince. In a moment of extreme courage, she reveals that the slipper is not hers, and that everything was part of a plan orchestrated by her mother. This revelation is not easy. By doing so, Anastasia knows she is risking losing everything: the prince, the palace, the fairy tale life she had always dreamed of. But she realizes that maintaining this lie would mean living an empty life without love or honesty, something she is no longer willing to accept. This act of courage is monumental for the character. Anastasia, who spent her life under her mother's control and living according to the standards of a society that values status above all else, finally makes her own decision. She rejects the easy and glamorous life offered by magic and opts for the truth, even if it means returning to her old reality. By doing so, Anastasia proves that her growth is not just a superficial change in attitude. She has matured to the point of understanding that the true happily ever after is not about wealth or prestige, but about authenticity and true love. The emotional impact of this moment is intensified by the fact that, once again, we see Cinderella's support. Despite having been wronged by Anastasia in the past, Cinderella holds no grudges. She becomes one of the main encouragers of Anastasia's decision to tell the truth, once again demonstrating the power of forgiveness. This dynamic between the two characters is crucial because it shows that Anastasia's redemption is not something she seeks alone. She has the support of someone who has suffered at her hands, making her choice even more significant. Furthermore, Anastasia's act of exposing the truth to the prince represents a definitive rebellion against Lady Tremaine. Throughout her life, Anastasia was manipulated and controlled by her mother, but at this moment, she finally breaks free from those chains. When she decides to follow her own path, she is not only rejecting the life of lies created by magic, but also the toxic influence that Lady Tremaine always exerted over her. This is a high point in her redemption journey, as it is the moment when Anastasia takes full responsibility for her choices and refuses to be just a pawn in her mother's game. This act of bravery marks Anastasia's final transformation. She evolves from an insecure and manipulated young woman into one who has the courage to confront her own mother, someone who had controlled her all her life. By refusing the false happy ending offered by Lady Tremaine, Anastasia proves that her quest for redemption is sincere and deep. She chooses what is right, even if it means losing everything she thought she wanted, and by doing so, she gains something much greater: freedom and the ability to define her own destiny. Anastasia's journey in Cinderella 2 and Cinderella 3 is rich in symbolism and carries important lessons about self-discovery, emotional freedom, and the value of honesty. Initially, Anastasia is a superficial character. Like most fairy tale villains, she values appearance, social status, and the pursuit of external validation. alone. But as her story progresses, we see a character who slowly realizes that true beauty and happiness come from within. This transformation does not happen instantly. It is built through small moments of reflection and crucial decisions, like breaking away from the pursuit of a marriage of convenience in the second film and choosing to tell the truth in the third. These moments symbolize Anastasia's internal journey, a woman who begins to understand that love and happiness cannot be bought or forced, but rather cultivated with honesty and empathy. The relationship Anastasia develops with the baker in Cinderella 2 is a clear example of this change in values. While her mother and sister remain focused on superficiality, Anastasia finds something real in a simple man, someone who treats her with kindness and respect. This represents the abandonment of old ideals of status and the acceptance that simplicity and authenticity are much more valuable. At this point, Anastasia begins to reject the lessons she learned from Lady Tremaine, and her relationship with the baker symbolizes her quest for something purer and more genuine. In Cinderella III, the fact that Anastasia gives up a false happy ending with a prince in favor of the truth shows that she finally understands what really matters. The glass slipper, which had always been a symbol of perfection and the ideal happy ending, ceases to be the focus for Anastasia. For her, the true happily ever after lies in the ability to be honest with herself and others, even if it means sacrificing the traditional vision of success. Moreover, Anastasia's journey can be seen as a metaphor for breaking free from toxic influences. Lady Tremaine, throughout the story, represents not only maternal oppression, but also the distorted values of society that privilege appearance and status over character. By rejecting her mother and the teachings that shaped her, Anastasia symbolizes the breaking of these oppressive standards, showing that it is possible to break free from negative influences, even if we have been shaped by them all our lives. Her transformation is also a lesson in self-worth and the fight for happiness that is truly her own. Throughout her journey, Anastasia realizes that her value is not tied to titles or riches, but to her ability to do what is right, to be honest with herself, and to follow her own path. Anastasia breaks with the traditional division between fairy tale heroines and villains, offering a unique transformation journey. Initially, she is seen as a villain driven by envy and ambition, shaped by the toxic influence of Lady Tremaine. However, her trajectory in Cinderella 2 and Cinderella 3 reveals a much more complex character, one who seeks redemption and personal growth. Anastasia challenges the norm of fairy tales by showing that villains can also change and evolve. Instead of being defined by her past mistakes, she learns to value true love and honesty, choosing the right path even if it means giving up riches and status. Her story highlights that female characters can have layers, transition between roles, and grow morally, offering a more complete and human view of women in fairy tales. Anastasia is undoubtedly the best character in the Cinderella story because of her remarkable evolution. Unlike Cinderella, who starts as the immaculate heroine, Anastasia moves from villain to a complex and human character. Her journey, which begins marked by envy and the toxic influence of Lady Tremaine, culminates in a process of self-discovery and liberation. Throughout the films, she defies expectations, choosing true love, honesty, and morality, even when it means giving up her more superficial desires. Her transformation is not just a personal act of redemption, but also a break from the simplistic villain archetype of fairy tales. Anastasia teaches us that even those who started on the wrong side can redeem themselves as long as they are willing to grow and do what is right. This makes her the richest and most inspiring character in the story, one who reflects that everyone has the potential to change and choose their own destiny. She represents the possibility of starting over and the power of second chances, showing that the true happily ever after is not found in status or wealth, but in becoming a better person.